Okay, there's no fancy intro spiel needed for this one, let's just get it over with. Mega Man 3 is the third game in the sub-series of Mega Man games released on the original Nintendo Game Boy, and a huge improvement over the previous two games in the series. The first Game Boy entry in the sub-series of Mega Man titles was a respectable effort, but the second entry was a fumbled effort that was lacking polish and a bit more than that probably. With Mega Man 3 there is an overall improvement over the previous titles with a product that stays true to what made the NES games great, and yet still has a couple of minor issues that keep it from being true to form. So let's get the gameplay out of the way. Mega Man 3 is based on the gameplay mechanics of the NES Mega Man 4, which basically means you could now charge your Mega Buster by holding down the B button, as well as retaining certain abilities and functions of the previous games such as the slide move, the rush adapters, the energy tanks, etc. Of course, like previous titles, you first face the 4 Robot Masters from a previous game, in this case Mega Man 3, then you play a brief mini-stage before facing off against 4 more Robot Masters from Mega Man 4, this time using a proper stage select screen, so you won't have to guess which capsule leads to which robot, as was the case with the previous 2 titles. As per the course, once you defeat the second wave of Robot Masters, you'll have to contend with a new robot boss, named Punk, before facing off against Dr. Wily in the final battle. A fairly basic structure overall with a fair share of levels. True to form, Mega Man 3 does the Mega Man franchise justice by not only retaining the play mechanics of the series, but also maintaining a high level with its responsive controls and solid level design. As great as the game plays, however, it is hindered with a case of severe slowdown. Although the game feels relatively slower than the usual Mega Man fare on the NES, there are times when the action would practically slow to a crawl. Most of the time this ends up being more of an annoyance than a critical flaw, but just the fact that this happens every so often is enough to be distracting. There tends to be a bit of an issue when it comes to sprite flickering, but this doesn't happen all that often. Aside from that, the game for the most part plays fine. Mega Man 3 is a fairly difficult game with some tricky jumps here and there, as well as some merciless enemy placement. If anything, it's about as hard, if not harder, than any other Mega Man game you'll find on the NES. Since the majority of the enemies are recycled from those games, shouldn't be too hard to get past them, but the levels are fairly new and have some new gimmicks here and there. It's not necessarily a cakewalk. Regardless, veteran Mega Man players shouldn't have too much trouble beating this one, but novice players might find this one a bit tough. The slowdown that this game suffers from probably won't help matters either, but it is beatable, it's not impossible. In regards to the overall presentation of Mega Man 3, it's the graphics, the sounds, the whatnots. This is a definite step up from the previous release, which looked rough and was generally of poorer quality. Mega Man 3 manages to do a fairly decent job of retaining the top-notch graphics from the NES version of the game, although some of the bigger foes have apparently been hit with a shrinking ray, but that's to be expected considering the smaller Game Boy screen. Since the majority of the sprite work was recycled from the NES games, there's really no point in critiquing them other than to say they've managed to make the transition to small screen rather well. The various levels also look good, with some being a step up from their NES originals. Snake Man's Game Boy stage, for example, takes place in a jungle setting, which is appropriate, whereas his NES stage has this barren, scaly green background for 98% of the level, and that's kind of lame, sorry to say. There's actually a couple nice cutscenes along the way, and they're rather nicely done. They're simple, but they do the job. Not much to say in that regard. Sound in Mega Man 3 is also a definite improvement. Not only is this an improvement over the previous game, which was kind of lackluster in terms of its instrumentation and sound effects, but the sound quality is also a step up from the first game and sounds pretty close to NES quality in regards to the music and sound effects. I remember being impressed by the audio quality the first time I played this game many years ago, and even today I consider the music in this game to be top-notch, with its almost spot-on adaptations of classic stage tunes and its few unique songs. Although the sound effects aren't as perfect, they are still very good for a Game Boy title. The only real complaint I have is the constant droning of your Mega Buster charge, which seems to drown out the music and sound effects. Maybe if they cut off the sound or something, they would, oh well, minor gripe. Overall, Mega Man 3 rectified most of the issues that plagued the previous entry in the series, but is still a far cry from the Mega Man standards established on the NES due to the slowdown and flickering issues that plague the game. If you can look past this and can tolerate the higher than usual difficulty that the game has to offer, then you'll find a worthy entry in the series that retains the best elements of Mega Man and is a fun game to boot. If nothing else, it serves as a basis for what's to come in the 2 games following this one, but that's another story for another time. To be told by someone else. Good night.